Okay, so in this lesson we're looking at moving on from responses in space to responses in time. So this is when plants and animals respond in a kind of a rhythm or a clock. Okay, so it means that the responses are a response that occurs at a certain time of the year, a certain time of the day, and these responses work as a result of the changing environment. Okay, so biological clock, that's an innate mechanism that controls the physiological activity. So remember, innate means it's built in. It's found in both plants and animals, and it often works in conjunction with the environment. So it's often not totally clear whether it's just environmentally being the cycle of the day-night, or if actually you take that away, and it will happen on its own. So what you need to do is go through, and I know there's a lot of videos here, but I would probably watch at least 3 or 4 of them, and until you understand the idea. There's some quite good little activities to do looking at your own biological clock, and some interactive activities. So have a go. I would spend an hour going through these ones here. Okay, don't worry too much about the actograms. We'll come back to those once we've figured out what a biological clock actually is. While you are listening to those videos and watching those interactives, you need to be looking and thinking about these terms. Okay, so you need to be learning what these terms mean. Okay, you also need to be thinking about why organisms respond. Okay, so we'll put some questions in here to help you answer these questions here. Okay, so here we go in here. So what is the adaptive advantage of being able to respond to the environment? Okay, and how do organisms control timing responses? And then the bottom part really is just looking at the definitions. So let's just put these in green so that you don't miss them, because we would hate for you to miss those questions, wouldn't we? And let's just make it a bit bigger. There you go. Okay, so why do organisms respond to time? They do it to synchronize with the environment. Okay, so it means that they don't have to keep checking. And we talked about this before, right at the very start. You know, the kiwi doesn't have to keep poking its nose out to see if it's dark, and by poking its nose out, it's exposing itself to predators and wasting energy. So it means that all of it also means, like, you know, bees aren't going to come out at night when the flowers are closed. They're only going to come out when the flowers are open. Not only that, flowers are only going to bloom, and plants are going to flower when there are bees around. There's no point in having flowering plants in the middle of winter when the bees are all hibernating. Okay, so it means that it times the activity with food availability, or with when pollinators are going to be around. Reduces the risk of predators, means that plants and animals know when winter's coming so they can prepare. Trees can lose their leaves so that they don't freeze over the winter. Bears can eat lots of food and get fat ready for hibernation. Birds that are going to migrate can eat lots of food and get ready to do that as well. Okay, so there are a lot of adaptive advantages to being able to respond in time. Okay, so being able to respond to the environmental changes that occur at certain times of the year. So how do they do this? They have an internal biological clock, which means endogenous, endo for inside. Okay, so an endogenous rhythm is one that's controlled inside by the brain, and exogenous is one that is controlled outside by an external factor, which is environmental cue, like the temperature or the day length. Often endogenous rhythms are not exact, and so they are reset by an external cue. Okay, we'll talk a little bit later about how you can tell if something is endogenous or exogenous. And so what are the plants and animals responding to? They're responding to annual changes, daily changes, monthly changes, also things like tidal rhythms. Okay, so have a go at watching some of these websites and videos. Answer these 2 questions. give yourself some definitions that you understand for all of these words here, okay, and then we can move on. Okay, so here are the terms, and I'll just go through them each briefly. I'd like you to pause the video now and go find your own definitions, but if you want to check your answers, which I know you all will, then these are them here. So exogenous, we've said before, is a biological clock that's controlled by an environmental stimulus, so the day length, the temperature. Endogenous is one that's regulated internally. Period of rhythm, so that's the time it takes to complete a cycle of activity. So when you see some graphs, you'll see they go up and down and up, so it's like one wavelength. So it goes from the inactive to the active part, okay, one period of rhythm. Phase shift, this is when the activity's been moved forward or back. So if you think of like humans, we have a 24-hour cycle where we're active during the day, sleep at night, but when daylight saving comes around, we change that time, and all of a sudden our bodies have to get up an hour earlier or go to bed an hour earlier, and so the whole rhythm, the whole wavelength shifts, okay, and that's called a phase shift. Free running period, that's the period that a behaviour will occur if there's no external stimulus. So if you've watched those videos, you'll see very interesting experiments where a man lived in a cave for a couple of months. So we have an internal body clock that keeps our active and sleep cycle at 24 hours, but the internal clock is not very exact, and so it's not exactly 24 hours. I think it's 24.6. So over a period of time, if you're living in the dark in a cave like that man is, every day you get 0.6 of an hour out, so half an hour out. So if you build that up over time, you'll see that the man is no longer active at what is actually the day and night. He's still active for about 12 hours and sleeps for about 12 hours, but it slowly gets out of sync. Okay, and this is called the free running period. When you bring an animal and expose them back to the environmental cues, they reset every morning when the sun comes up. Our environmental cue is reset so that our rhythm is exactly 24 hours. So two more terms there. So entrainment, that's when you are resetting your biological clock. So the sun coming up and setting is entraining our biological clock. And the Zeitberger is the cue that sets that clock. So for us, it's the sun. Okay. So let's go back through those things again. So we've got an endogenous biological clock that keeps our rhythm, but it's not exact. If you take us out of the environment and away from the environmental cues, our rhythm will go to slightly longer or slightly shorter than the environment. Okay, and that's called the free running period. So they do lots of experiments with crabs and things where they take them away from the tide, and they see that their rhythm is like 14 hours instead of 12 hours long. Because they are being entrained by the sea coming in and out every 12 hours and is being reset by the sea coming in and out. Okay, so you'll be given graphs and things, and you have to identify the period of rhythm. If there's a phase shift, you have to read the information. Are they doing it in the absence of environmental cues? If they are, then you can see their free running period. If they're not, you'll see that it's exactly a 24 hours or 12 hours for a tide. Okay. So some more definitions. Diurnal, active at night. Nocturnal, active diurnal, active during the day. Nocturnal, active at night. Crepuscular, cool word. Rabbits do this. They're active at dawn and dusk. And arrhythmic, no pattern. They're just active whenever they want. Okay. There can be compound rhythms where they've got more than one rhythm. So I think we'll leave it at that for this lesson. You need to go through and work out your definitions in your own words. Okay, you need to go and watch these videos, and the next lesson we'll talk about actograms and reading actograms. There will also be some biozone pages that you'll need to do, and I'll put those in back on the lesson instruction page. Okay.